Good evening, and it's great to be with you again today for this week's parish news. We're now broadcasting hopefully in 4 places from this evening: our Facebook group, YouTube live channel, our Twitter account, and now actually on our own parish website, where we now have a page where the live feed should come up. So if you ever want to check that out, it's at www.parishofwykeregis.org.uk/live, and every time we broadcast that should pop up there. I have to say, I haven't had a chance to test it yet, as I've been live broadcasting, so I need somebody else to be doing something so I can test it at some stage. But hopefully it's working if anybody wants to try it out. Of course, live streaming and services, news, quizzes have become a very important part of the parish life since the coronavirus pandemic. And it's enabled us to stay in touch with people and also to get new followers and make new friends. I'm often asked whether we will continue with these services as things open up and we get back to some sense of normality, whatever normality in the future will be. But I'm happy to say it's certainly our intention to carry on with our online services, quizzes and news programmes. This week has been National Volunteers Week. And in a survey a couple of years ago, they found out some statistics on volunteers. They found out that nearly 4 in 10 people volunteered formally as part of a group, club or organisation at least once during the year. That means that an estimated 20.1 million people who formally volunteered during the year of the survey. Around 7 in 10 people who took part in the survey have volunteered formally at some time in their lives. However, only a small proportion, around 7%, say that they have consistently and heavily been involved in volunteering over time. I'm sure many of you have and will continue to volunteer for organisations in both a formal way and an informal way. And I know during the coronavirus pandemic, many people have been volunteering in simple terms by calling on friends and neighbours, checking on them, picking up food or medication for people who live close to them. This is all volunteering. Our country really does run and rely heavily on volunteers, and it can be a very positive experience for people knowing that they're doing something worthwhile, helping other people, and it is very much appreciated. So to all of you who are volunteers, and in case anybody hasn't said a thank you to you during Volunteers Week, I'm going to say a thank you to you on behalf of everyone else. So if you're a volunteer, whether you give an hour a month, an hour a week or an hour a day, from me on behalf of everybody else, a really, really big thank you. Of course, in our own parish, some of our team have been working really hard with the food bank, and this is just one example of many things going on locally, county-wide or across the country, all being run by volunteers at this time. Matt Prosser, who is the Chief Executive of Dorset County Council, recognises how important this is for the people of Dorset, and we hear from Matt now.
Hello, my name is Matt Prosser and I'm Chief Executive of Dorset Council, and I just want to say a huge thank you to all of our residents who volunteered and are helping through local community groups and individual volunteering action, particularly at this time of the COVID-19 crisis. I want to acknowledge the outstanding community effort and how everyone has rallied around to support each other. It's been a tremendous effort. Volunteers have supported friends and family and other members in the community with grocery deliveries, food parcel deliveries, medication collection, dog walking, gardening and befriending services for those who've got no nearby contact. Really, really important that people at this time who can't get out have that real human interaction and contact, even if it is just via a telephone call or a FaceTime call. We're working closely with partners and charities to match all of our volunteers to those services. And if you volunteered and haven't yet been called upon, please don't worry. We will find work for you to do. This is going to be a long-term issue. We want to make sure that we use our volunteers to support our communities in the best way possible for the long term. Because as our lockdown restrictions are now starting to change, some of you as volunteers will be heading back to work. So we know that we'll need to perhaps find more people to sign up. and more information can be found online on our community response page if you want to sign up. So if you're volunteering here in Dorset, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for the time you're giving. Thank you for the difference you're making.
Thank you very much, Matt. And he just really reinforces the message that I said earlier. You know, our country and our community very much runs on volunteers. And carrying on the theme of volunteers, I was very much reminded this week of the fact that normally our local museum in Weymouth relies on volunteers, both to run it and to look after the artefacts. Of course, many things at the museum have not happened as normal. The museum is not open, and this stage I guess it probably doesn't even know when it will be able to reopen. I guess that when it does reopen, there will be issues of space for social distancing, and perhaps many of the volunteers may themselves be older or have health conditions which may make them more vulnerable and therefore may have to be taken into consideration. That said, the good news is that the local museum have been very active on social media, particularly on Facebook, posting old pictures and videos, and I have to say I've learnt quite a bit over recent weeks. I've discovered some old photos, particularly of a charity that I'm involved in that owns a property in Weymouth, and I've discovered some old photos that the charity knew nothing of, and that's been very welcome and interesting. In the last few days, the museum have posted a couple of videos, and I thought I would share them with you today, and the museum have kindly given me permission to do this. The museum recently discovered in their digital archives an hour-long DVD of what appears to be home movies from around 1931. Thorneloe School, that's Thorneloe School, later renamed Thornloe as we know it, and West Bay are the only places specifically named in the film, but all the footage appears to be shot locally in South Dorset. They plan to post clips of this on the Facebook and hopefully ask you, the community, to see if you can help identify the various locations in the film. Two subjects in the clip I'm about to show you are easily identifiable. The Madeleine Tristan on Chesil Beach, which is a ship, and the steam tug Portway in Portland Harbour. However, the museum would be grateful for any other observations on this film, including the location and possibly the identity of the lady who appears in the middle of the film. So let's have a look at this clip now. So if you recognise the lady in that film or the location, please do let us know. The museum also has another clip of I do like to be beside the seaside, written in 1907 by John Glover Kind. Here is a snippet of it recorded by Florrie Ford, who was a popular music hall entertainer around that time.
Up in town, you've got to settle down. You save up all the money you can till summer comes around. Then away you go to a spot you know where the cockle shells are found. Oh, I do like to be beside the seaside. I do like to be beside the sea. I do like to be upon the from, where the brass band plays tickly-om-tom-tom. So just let me be beside the seaside. I'll be beside myself with glee. And there's lots of girls beside, I should like to be beside the seaside, beside the sea.
So there we go. Do search out Weymouth Museum on Facebook. Search for Weymouth Museum and follow them to see what else pops up. I know they've actually put some more videos up today. They'll be posting further clips as time goes on, and they'll be grateful for any help you can give them identifying the clips. Also, do have a look at their website at www.weymouthmuseum.org.uk. Now we move on to our part of our programme where we've been hearing about people and their wartime memories, either in Wyke or Weymouth or further afield. This week, Janet Hall speaks to Barry and Rita Judge. It's great to see Barry on our programme as somebody who's very familiar to church members and normally does get to be seen each week. But obviously during our 3 months of lockdown, we've not seen much of Barry. So it's good that he's joining with us this evening.
Memories of World War II by me, Barry. Born in 1938 and not far from London, near Woking in Surrey, my knowledge of the war is very limited. As I was brought up by my grandparents who shielded me from such things.
So what do you remember about the bombing?
The only thing I can remember of the bombing is being taken to a landing window and shown the bombs being dropped over London, which is an hour and a half away from where we were living.
And you saw the lights of the
saw the lights and the flames and things. A few years later, my dad remarried, and I was privately evacuated to South Wales. I was put on a train at Reading with strangers who were asked to make sure I got off at Cardiff, where someone was going to meet me. They did. I went to school in Mardy in the Rhondda Valley until after the war was over.
Barry's wife Rita grew up in Weymouth. She was the only child in the family and grew up in a very adult house. Because her mother worked in Whitehead's torpedo factory, she was brought up by her grandma. She remembers being taken to the Anderson shelter during air raids. Because they had the home fleet on Portland, the dockyard and a torpedo factory at Ferry Bridge, there were quite a few air raids. Cobham Drive was an airfield then, and she could stand in her grandma's back garden and watch men jumping out of barrage balloons. She remembers being taken to see all the small boats leaving the harbour for the Dunkirk rescue, and also being taken to the Sydney Hall to see all the soldiers leaving for the D-Day landings. The Americans were throwing oranges and sweets at the children. They had a Morrison shelter in the front room, and she spent quite some time in there. She also remembers that her first school at Cromwell Road had an air raid shelter in the playground. She can still recognise the sound of a Spitfire engine before she sees it. The war was a sad time for Rita and her family, as her father was in the army and was killed at the Battle of Monte Cassino. I am very grateful to Barry and Rita and everyone who has been sharing their wartime memories with us. If you have anything you would like to add, please get in touch. Bye for now.
And thank you very much, Janet, and of course Barry, for that report. I perhaps should mention and perhaps learn something for a future week that some of our videos do have flashing images in, and some of you will know that that's an issue for us at home here. And in the background, as things have been happening, we've had to deal with an issue with a problem with flashing images causing somebody a problem. So I will take note of that for future weeks. And I do believe there are some flashing images coming up in another article in a minute, which I will warn you about before we start it. So we come to that part of the show now where we play this. Okay, and we come to the section of the show where we look at birthdays and celebrations. Birthdays this week, as Les Seamark was 65 on Wednesday, although he's rightly reminded me that he's not yet a pensioner, as he doesn't actually get his pension until he's 66. I hope you had a really nice day this week, Les, on your birthday. Whilst mentioning birthdays, I'd also like to congratulate Derek and Carol Griffin, who have a new grandson, Louis James Griffin, born on the 31st of May, weighing £7 8 ounces. And Nana and Papa are very excited. So congratulations to you. Of course, if any of you are celebrating any birthdays, any other special occasions or anniversaries, please do let us know so we can wish you well in next week or a future week's programme. Of course, today marks the 76th anniversary of D-Day, and normally we would see parades and commemorations. There would have been a big occasion in Normandy today, but due to the pandemic, much smaller, low-key commemorations are happening with smaller groups, socially distanced, etc. However, we're very lucky that the media have been covering things, and I saw some things from first thing this morning. I'm sure many of you will have seen Harry Billinge on the TV this morning. Harry was one of those who wanted a proper memorial and started fundraising a couple of years ago for that, so a memorial could be put up in Normandy. As an 18-year-old sapper with the Royal Engineers, Harry landed on Gold Beach at 6:30 a.m. on the 6th of June 1944 as part of the first wave. Like so many Second World War veterans, memories of D-Day and the loss of so many comrades have never left him. Harry has dedicated himself with great fervour to fundraising for the Normandy Memorial Trust. So a year ago, on the 6th of June 2019, which was the 75th anniversary of D-Day, the memorial site at Vers-sur-Mer was officially inaugurated with the unveiling of a D-Day sculpture and laying of the foundation stone. The then Prime Minister, Theresa May, French President Emmanuel Macron and Normandy veterans were all in attendance. Since then, significant construction work has taken place on the site. However, following a 2-month pause due to the coronavirus crisis, construction of the memorial has now resumed, thanks to the introduction of new working procedures and principal contractors Eiffage and the large open nature of the site. So the report we're going to see now features on D-Day. It features footage from British Pathé, and there could be flashing images, so I'll say that now in the first part of the film. And then the film goes on to have an update on the construction project in Normandy of the new memorial.
On the 6th of June 1944, the great secret is divulged. The 4th of June 1940, the evacuation of the BEF and Allied troops from Dunkirk was completed. 4 years later, almost to the hour, we go back to the same Normandy coast, which saw the closing chapter of the Battle of France. The Allied invasion of Europe from the west is launched. D-Day, the Second Front, and the Second Battle of France. Against the background of these Pathé Gazette pictures of that tragic but glorious exit, we announce the fact that never in the history of newsreels have such vast plans been made for the coverage of the last great act of liberation. To bring to the screen from the first day of our assault on the western seaboard of Europe, the history of Allied invasion. 4 years ago, Europe was Hitler's. The lights of freedom went out. Now the world of free men strikes in all its assembled might at the weakening chains of bondage. Here are the first pictures of the opening of the Second Front. Pictures which security demands should be meager at this stage, yet thrilling because they carry the first flush of excitement as the mammoth task gets underway. Over the French coast go our bombers as invasion hour dawns, to blast enemy lines of communication. From the coast of Britain, the floodgates are opening to release the tide of Allied soldiers. The great curtain of secrecy is still drawn as invasion troops embark, and our Prime Minister makes a last-minute visit to the assembled armada. The first of a series of landings in force is how Mr. Churchill describes the operation. Author of the Victory V sign, he watches over the great preparations and sees the start of the master plan. 4,000 ships and thousands of smaller vessels are involved in the enterprise, and the British, Canadian and American troops employed, sustained by 11,000 first-line aircraft.
June 2020, 1 year since the inauguration of the site of the British Normandy Memorial, and we're delighted to report that after the suspension of work caused by the pandemic, construction has been fully resumed. Our contractors are busy, the memorial is taking shape, and progress is good. Since the pandemic has made it impossible for Normandy veterans to see that progress in person, we're particularly keen to show you these latest images and share the latest details of a memorial under construction. Almost all of the pillars bearing the names of those under British command who lost their lives in the landings and in the Battle of Normandy are now in place. Here are listed the names of the 22,442 men and women from all the armed services who never came home. Memorial Court, the central feature of the memorial, is still swathed in protective sheeting. Behind it, our letter carvers are hard at work. They're engraving the major inscriptions, extracts from King George VI's D-Day broadcast, from Winston Churchill's "We Will Never Surrender" speech, and from others. The work is a matter of pride.
It's quite humbling in a way to be standing next to these great big pieces of stone, the depth of the walls, the permanence of this piece now, to commemorate the lost and the dead. We've spent a long time on all these words and focusing on every letter and really thinking about the message that's being portrayed here.
Nearby, the French memorial is under construction, stone by stone, placed carefully into position by our stonemasons. This memorial will remember the many thousands of French civilians who lost their lives in the summer of 1944. And there's progress too on the memorial campus. The landscape is being laid out, trees and bushes carefully planted to create a place where visitors can reflect and remember as they search out the names on the pillars and look out to Gold Beach beyond and the evocative remains of the Mulberry Harbour off Arromanches in the distance. So the British Normandy Memorial is taking shape. Sadly, the pandemic has meant that there cannot be a veterans opening in September as we'd hoped. The site remains busy with construction work and must remain closed to visitors. But we look forward very much to welcoming veterans, their families and families of the fallen in 2021.
So thank you, Effiard, Normandy Memorial Trust, and of course Harry Billinge for his inspiration. If you'd like to make a donation to the cost of the memorial, you can go to www.normandymemorialtrust.org/donate. And if you'd like to do that, I'm sure they would be very, very grateful. Now we move on to what a lot of us may have been doing whilst we've been locked down. Many of you will have spent time away from home during the lockdown, taking your daily exercise with a walk close to your home, whilst trying to maintain social distancing and hopefully not meeting up with too many people. Janet Hall, I know, goes out every morning very early for a walk, and she's now going to tell us about her daily walks and share with us some of the photographs that she's taken while she's been out walking.
I don't know about you, but one of the things that has saved me during lockdown is being able to go out for my daily walk. I have done these very early in the morning, both because it's quieter and because it is the most beautiful time of the day. Because I always have my phone with me, I also have a camera, and I have taken hundreds of photographs. I have put together just a few of these to give a feel of what it's been like for me walking in lockdown.
So thank you very much, Janet, for sharing those pictures with us. And one of the things I was reminded as we went through Janet's video was seeing those cruise ships in the background. There's so many of those pictures. And I heard this week, I'm sure as many of you did, that all the cruise liners, I think it's Carnival that operates P&O, and some of the others have actually cancelled all their cruises now up to the 1st of October. So I'm sure we're going to have, as a feature on Weymouth Bay, those large cruise liners for a long time to come. And I know it's disappointing for some members of our parish and people who live in Wyke, and it's really surprised me how many people have said to me that they had cruises planned and they should be on the cruise ships now. So it's amazing how many people are affected by the fact that cruise ships aren't operating. Of course, if you have wartime memories, hobbies or interests or stories, or just some photographs that you'd like to share, please do get in touch either with myself or Janet, and we'd be very happy to hear from you and to put a piece together with you. Or if you fancy producing a video report yourself, like Frank Tuffhouse and Jeff Rivers and some other people, please speak to me and we'll be happy to give you some advice on how to do it and to include it in a future programme. Of course, we continue to be in a fast-changing situation, and I've been asked several times over the last couple of weeks what's happening about church. When will we be open again? When can we have a baptism, or can our wedding planned for the summer go ahead? Will it be okay? The simple answer is that we don't know. There's no detail currently. We don't know what the future holds and when we will see churches opening up again. I think, though, we probably all do appreciate that when things do start up, there are likely to be limits on what we can do and what we can offer. Probably restricted numbers in church, certainly socially distanced, increased cleaning regimes, possible restrictions on singing, communion could look quite different, and maybe we'll all have to wear face coverings. What, of course, we can say, and what certainly the ministry team and the core people from the church can promise, is the following: that we will keep you updated as soon as we know anything, and we will share that with you. Whatever we will do, we will consider the safety of the ministry team, the congregation, and we'll make sure that everything is properly risk assessed before we open up and do anything. We'll do our best to make sure we can do something for everyone. So if we can't all meet in church, then we will continue with live streaming as well. And we will start baptisms and weddings as soon as we are permitted and assuming the right controls are in place. So please do watch our Facebook page, read your parish newsletters and look at the website, and we will share that information with you just as soon as we know it. We know how quick things can change, and how the government can announce things very, very quickly, and how things are ongoing and developing rapidly. This week we've seen the government say that face coverings on public transport is something that they now want us to think about, when a few weeks ago it was something that we weren't required to do. It also looks as they're going to make that enshrined in law and make that a legal requirement. And it also looks as if surgical masks will be required in hospital as well, when you're working in a hospital or maybe when you're visiting a hospital. We know that the government have also started to put in place their track and trace system. And I think the track and trace system, the wearing of face coverings and face masks, and more people being tested are probably something that we're going to have to get used to for some months and possibly longer ahead. So I thought I would show the latest government information video on the track and trace system and share that with you now.
To control coronavirus, testing and tracing must become a new way of life. If you have symptoms, you need to get a test immediately. Do not leave home for any other reason. If you test positive, NHS Test and Trace will contact you to trace people you might have infected. If you're told you've been exposed to an infected person, you must self-isolate for 14 days. Play your part in testing and tracing so we can safely return to a more normal life. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
So just to follow up on that, basically, if you have symptoms of the coronavirus, you can now ask for a test to check if you've actually got the virus. It's called an antigen test. So you can ask for a test for yourself. You can ask for it for a child that's living with you. If you've got symptoms of high temperature, continuous cough, or a loss of change of sense or smell or taste. Okay, so you can ask for a child to be tested that lives with you as well, and the idea is that if you think you've got the virus, you can confirm it, and then obviously can restrict tying up and linking in with other people and the spread of the virus to keep this thing called the R number down. That brings us to the end of this week's programme. Do join us for our usual quiz tonight at 7:30 and for our Sunday morning service tomorrow at 9:30. Tomorrow is Trinity Sunday and we are joined by the Bishop of Sherborne, Bishop Karen, who will preach at our service tomorrow. And don't forget, if you've got a story, wartime memories, or just a birthday or special occasion coming up, please do get in touch We would love to hear from you. Until next week, it's good night from me.